Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favourite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. The Simplon Orient Express was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant, refined, every passenger playing their role in the glittering theatre of high society. Then, in the dead of night, Sir Reginald Harrington, wealthy industrialist and baronet, was found dead in his first-class compartment. Throat neatly slit, a single drop of blood staining the crisp white linen of his pillow, and the police saw a simple robbery gone wrong, the work of some opportunistic thief who slipped away in the chaos. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this rolling theatre of wealth was playing the role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The Simplon Orient Express sliced through the Alpine night like a gleaming silver blade wrapped in Art Deco luxury. Polished mahogany panels gleamed under crystal chandeliers that tinkled gently with every sway of the rails. The warm drawing-room air carried the rich scents of expensive Chanel perfume, fine Cuban cigar smoke, and fresh hothouse lilies arranged in silver vases. Soft kid gloves rested on leather upholstery, while outside the windows the chill night air pressed coldly against the glass, creating a perfect contrast to the fire-warmed elegance inside. Sir Reginald Harrington occupied the most opulent first-class compartment. A commanding man of 60, with steel-grey hair and a fortune built on railways and industry, he had boarded in Istanbul, surrounded by his entourage. His wife, Lady Eleanor, graceful yet reserved in her early 50s, travelled beside him. Also aboard were his business partner, Victor Langford, sleek in tailored tweed, his efficient secretary, Miss Clara Voss, in crisp linen, and the young American heiress, Miss Lydia Beaumont, whose silk evening gown rustled like whispered secrets every time she moved. The murder was discovered shortly after midnight as the train slowed near the Yugoslav border. The conductor Pierre, a discreet man with quiet footsteps on the parquet corridor, he knocked politely for the bedtime service. When no answer came, he used his master key and entered. The scene inside was staged with chilling precision. Sir Reginald lay on the narrow bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, his throat slit in one clean surgical cut. A single drop of blood had stained the crisp white linen pillow. The compartment door was locked from the inside, yet the window stood slightly ajar, letting in icy draughts that carried the smell of snow. "Mon Dieu," Pierre whispered, his hands shaking as he stepped back. Footsteps echoed softly along the corridor as passengers began to stir. Lady Eleanor arrived first, her silk robe whispering against the carpet. She pressed a gloved hand to her mouth, but her eyes stayed strangely dry. "Reginald," she said quietly, the word delivered with careful calm, "Hercule Poirot had been travelling in the adjacent carriage, returning from a delicate matter in the East." The little Belgian detective stepped into the drama with the calm authority of a director called to a troubled production. His egg-shaped head tilted slightly as he surveyed the compartment. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, green eyes gleaming with sharp interest beneath the soft glow of the wall sconces. The police could not reach the train for several hours. A sudden heavy snowfall had trapped the Orient Express in an alpine drift, turning the luxurious carriages into a sealed rolling theatre. No one could leave. The entire cast was now confined together on this elegant stage. Poirot arranged a small side table symmetrically, placing a crystal ashtray with precise care. "This, mes amis, is no ordinary robbery," he announced to the gathered staff and anxious passengers, clustered like uneasy actors awaiting direction. "Observe the wound, precise, almost artistic. A man in first class does not die so neatly unless the performance demands it." Lady Eleanor performed grief with delicate dabs of a lace handkerchief. Her shoulders shook at the right moments, yet the fabric remained perfectly dry. Victor Langford paced the narrow corridor, his rough tweed jacket brushing the heavy velvet curtains, muttering about business rivals. Miss Voss stood rigidly, the faint sandalwood of her cologne mixing with the warm air. Miss Lydia Beaumont clutched a glass of icy champagne, the bubbles rising like nervous thoughts in the warm drawing-room. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it? Lady Eleanor's hands remained far too steady as she folded the handkerchief. Poirot drew himself up to his full, still modest height. Hercule Poirot is not deceived by such theatre. The stage is set with every luxury, but death has claimed the leading role tonight. The passengers were gently herded back toward their compartments under the watchful eyes of the conductor and a local constable who had managed to board. The train remained immobile, snow piling silently against the windows like a thick white curtain. The scent of furniture wax and wood smoke from the heating system blended with the bitter aroma of strong continental coffee being served to steady frayed nerves. "You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's eyes avoid the body just a little too carefully?" The compartment itself told its own silent story. A half-empty bottle of fine red wine stood on the small polished table, its cork recently removed. The rich taste would still linger on the tongue of anyone who had shared it. Sir Reginald's leather wallet lay open, banknotes untouched, yet his small silver cigarette case was missing. Or had it been taken as a trophy? Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve with fastidious care. Order and method will reveal the truth behind these masks. The grandfather clock in the lounge car chimed softly, its sound blending with the distant rustle of silk and the soft closing of compartment doors. The tension in the air rose steadily, thick as the wood smoke drifting from the stoves. Someone among these elegant actors would soon forget their lines, of the cold terrace-like feel of the observation platform, contrasted sharply with the warm interiors, where crystal glasses still held the faint chill of champagne. Distant piano music from a gramophone added an ironic touch of glamour to the grim night. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The psychology, it is everything. In this confined theatre of luxury, every player wears a carefully chosen mask. But masks, they have a way of slipping when the spotlight of truth begins to shine. Lady Eleanor retreated to her compartment, her silk gown rustling softly. Langford lit a cigarette with fingers that trembled only slightly. Miss Voss arranged her papers with obsessive neatness. Miss Beaumont sipped the last of her champagne, the dry bubbles sharp on her tongue. The stage was perfectly prepared, the lighting dramatic, and the cast assembled under one roof with nowhere to run. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players' formal interviews began the following morning in the dining car, transformed into an elegant makeshift stage. Polished mahogany panels and Lalique glass accents caught the weak winter light, filtering through snow-covered windows. The air carried the comforting aroma of strong continental coffee and lingering traces of Cuban cigar smoke from the night before. Crystal glasses clinked nervously as passengers set them down, while the faint rustle of silk and crisp linen filled the warm space. Outside, fresh snow continued to fall, sealing the Orient Express into its private theatre. Poirot directed each scene with quiet precision, with his small hands arranging a vase of hothouse lilies symmetrically on the table. First to enter was Lady Eleanor Harrington. She appeared in a dove-grey silk gown that whispered softly with every step. Her perfume, a delicate Worth creation, mingled with the scent of fresh coffee. She sat with perfect posture and dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "The performance of grief is most touching," Poirot observed. "She weeps, yes. The handkerchief dabs at the eyes. The shoulders shake appropriately. But observe, the handkerchief remains perfectly dry. The mascara does not run. The performance of grief, it is technically flawless. Too flawless." He tilted his egg-shaped head slightly. "Lady Eleanor, when did you last see your husband alive?" She claimed they had dined together, retired early, and that she had taken a mild sedative because of the train's motion. Her maid had confirmed the door was locked from inside. Yet her eyes carefully avoided Poirot's when she spoke of the growing business tensions with Victor Langford. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes? Consider the psychology. What role does this woman need to play in this drama? Next came Victor Langford, the business partner. He entered in a well-cut tweed suit that carried the faint scent of leather and sandalwood cologne. He performed the role of the shocked associate with vigorous gestures and a deep voice, yet the words flowed just a little too smoothly. "Reginald was like a brother to me," he declared, but no genuine moisture appeared in his eyes. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Mr. Langford, your partnership involved very large sums, no? Greed sometimes performs beautifully as loyalty." Langford protested, his footsteps echoing sharply on the parquet floor as he shifted uncomfortably. The crystal chandelier tinkled overhead with the train's slight movements, adding an ironic musical note to the tense scene. Miss Clara Voss followed, the efficient secretary. Her crisp linen blouse was immaculate, and soft kid gloves covered her hands. She spoke calmly of taking dictation late into the evening, and claimed she had left Sir Reginald alive and well. Her performance was one of cool competence, but her fingers twisted a crisp linen napkin too tightly, the texture rough against her skin. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how the hands always betray what the face tries so hard to conceal. Miss Lydia Beaumont, the young American heiress, played the part of the innocent traveller with wide eyes and fluttering lashes. Her silk evening gown caught the light beautifully as she crossed her legs. She had been sipping champagne the previous night, and the dry taste perhaps still lingered on her tongue. She insisted she had heard nothing from her compartment 2 doors away. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Observe her smile. It reaches the lips, but never quite the eyes. The conductor Pierre performed quiet deference with appropriate shock, recounting his discovery in measured tones. Yet Poirot noted the way he arranged objects on the table with obsessive symmetry, almost mirroring Poirot's own habits. The small contradictions appeared like missed cues in a badly rehearsed play. Lady Eleanor insisted her husband feared no one, yet Langford mentioned recent threats from a rival firm. Miss Voss recalled a heated argument at dinner, while Miss Beaumont swore the evening had been perfectly harmonious. The warm drawing-room grew heavier as these discrepancies accumulated, contrasting with the cold terrace air that seeped in whenever a door opened briefly. Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision, his green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Each player has now entered the stage with their chosen role. The widow performs devoted sorrow, the partner performs loyal concern, the secretary performs quiet efficiency, the heiress performs carefree detachment. You see, but you do not observe the performance, the psychology. It is everything. And as the interviews progressed, the scent of wood smoke from the heating stoves mixed with the rich coffee and faint cologne. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed softly, marking the passage of this first act of questioning. Doors closed gently along the corridor as each suspect returned to their compartment. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it in the steady hands, the dry eyes, the too smooth words? Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. In this luxurious rolling theatre, every actor believes their mask is perfect, but the little grey cells, they see the tiny hesitations. They hear the false notes in the voice. They feel the tremor that should not be there. The tension in the dining car rose steadily, as someone among these elegant passengers would soon forget their carefully prepared lines. The snow continued to fall outside, turning the windows into frosted curtains that trapped the drama within. Every actor had taken their mark, but who played truth, and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The first act. Deeper investigation unfolded as the Orient Express remained trapped in its snowy prison. Poirot moved between compartments like a director, carefully blocking each new scene. The polished mahogany felt smooth beneath his fingertips, while heavy velvet curtains brushed softly against his sleeve. Sleet tapped insistently against the windows, adding a rhythmic percussion to the growing tension. The warm interiors smelled of furniture wax, strong continental coffee, and faint traces of expensive perfume. A mask slipped first with Miss Clara Voss. When confronted with a clear discrepancy in her timeline, she claimed to have retired at 11, yet a fellow passenger had heard the steady clack of her typewriter until well after midnight. She faltered visibly. Her hands trembled, and she dropped one soft kid glove onto the cold marble-top table with a soft thud. The first revelation, Poirot murmured. She knew more than her calm performance suggested. In a past case parallel, Poirot recalled the affair of the deceptive actress in a fashionable London townhouse. She had played the role of the devoted wife with astonishing conviction, rehearsing her lines of shock and sorrow before tall mirrors for hours. She practiced widening her eyes at precisely the right moment, letting her voice break on cue, and even allowing a single elegant tear to fall. Yet, when her husband's body was discovered poisoned in his study, her hands reached for her cigarette case with unnatural steadiness. A truly grieving widow's fingers would shake. The body always betrays what the face has carefully rehearsed. The little grey cells understand that the psychology beneath the performance reveals every flaw in the script. In that glittering case, the actress had poisoned her husband for the insurance money, her love performing as perfect indifference until the final act tore away her mask. 142 words. Reflection. In this luxurious theatre of the Orient Express, we observe how humans wear masks not only to deceive others, but to protect themselves from the harsh spotlight of truth. Lady Eleanor dons the veil of the grieving widow because society demands it, as any open relief at the death of a domineering husband would invite suspicion and scandal. Victor Langford performs loyal partnership to mask years of growing resentment at playing second fiddle. Miss Voss hides her secret feelings behind a cloak of cool efficiency. Why do we wear these masks? Fear of judgment, greed for a better future, love twisted into painful obsession. The psychology runs deep. Every actor fears the moment the audience turns critical. This mirrors the deceptive actress case, where flawless performance hid cold calculation beneath layers of rehearsed emotion. Universally, deception thrives because truth feels raw, unrehearsed, and dangerously vulnerable. Lies flow smoothly because they are practiced night after night before the mirror. Yet truth always stumbles into view through small, telling details, the dry handkerchief, the steady hand, the carefully avoided glance. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Watch not the grand gestures, but the quiet moments when the actor believes no one is watching. The theatre of crime has one eternal truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines. In this snowbound stage, more masks will crack as the spotlight grows brighter. Ask yourself, which role do you play in your own daily drama, and what small truth might slip through if the curtain was suddenly pulled back? The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. More would surely follow. Poirot pressed forward, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. He arranged a crystal glass and ashtray symmetrically on the table, the faint clink providing a brief moment of order amid the chaos, and the scent of wood smoke from the heating stoves blended with rich coffee, and the subtle sandalwood cologne worn by Langford, who now paced the corridor with increasing agitation. His rough tweed jacket brushed against the velvet curtains, creating a soft, restless sound. Lady Eleanor retreated briefly to the cold, terrace-like observation platform, where icy air stung her cheeks, only to return quickly to the fire's comforting warmth. Her silk gown rustled as she moved, but her performance of sorrow was beginning to show tiny fractures. Miss Beaumont clutched another glass of champagne, its chill contrasting the warm drawing room, the dry bubbles sharp on her tongue. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch how Miss Voss's hands betrayed her? The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice the small details that no amount of rehearsal can perfectly hide. Footsteps echoed on the parquet flooring as passengers shifted uneasily. The grandfather clock in the lounge car chimed softly, marking the steady progress of the investigation. Distant piano music drifted from a gramophone, adding an elegant but ironic backdrop to the unfolding drama. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. The psychology, it is everything. In this confined first-class theatre, every player believes their mask is impenetrable. But the little grey cells see the tremor in the voice, the dryness in the eyes, the unnecessary precision of movement. Tension rose steadily in the warm carriage. The snow continued to fall outside, turning the windows into frosted barriers that trapped every secret within. Someone among these refined actors would soon forget their carefully prepared lines under the growing pressure. The first act had ended. The stage lights had dimmed slightly, but the true drama was only beginning to unfold. Some masks had cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. Poirot began to apply gentle but relentless pressure on the suspects during private scenes in the dining car. The warm drawing room felt increasingly oppressive as the morning wore on, the air thick with the mingled scents of strong continental coffee, furniture wax and faint Cuban cigar smoke that still clung to the velvet curtains. Crystal chandeliers tinkled softly with the train's occasional shifts, while outside the windows fresh snow continued to pile against the glass like a silent white audience. Victor Langford was the first to feel the spotlight intensify. When Poirot questioned him again about the large financial discrepancies in the partnership accounts, his rehearsed performance of loyal concern began to strain. He paced the narrow parquet floor, his rough tweed jacket brushing against the heavy velvet curtains with an agitated rustle. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the chill draughts that occasionally slipped in from the cold terrace-like observation platform. "Rehearsed lines," Poirot said calmly, tilting his egg-shaped head. "You speak so smoothly of brotherhood and shared success, yet the ledger tells a different story of hidden debts and resentment." Langford protested a little too loudly, his voice cracking on the high notes. He reached for a cigarette with fingers that were no longer quite steady, the flame of his lighter flickering in the warm firelight. The rich aroma of tobacco mixed with the scent of his sandalwood cologne, but it could not mask the growing fear. Miss Lydia Beaumont's mask of carefree innocence also started to show stress when Poirot confronted her about the missing silver cigarette case found hidden among her silk scarves. She performed outrage with fluttering lashes and raised voice, her silk evening gown rustling dramatically as she stood. Yet her hands clutched the edge of the polished mahogany table too tightly, knuckles whitening against the smooth wood. Too perfect, too rehearsed, truth stumbles, lies flow smooth until the pressure mounts. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Mademoiselle, innocent travellers do not conceal items belonging to the dead. Greed, it sometimes performs as youthful nonchalance." The young American heiress sat down abruptly, her face flushing. She sipped from a glass of icy champagne as if to steady herself, the dry bubbles sharp and cold on her tongue, contrasting the warm room. Her smile no longer reached her eyes. Lady Eleanor was pressed next on her exact movements after dinner. She claimed to have taken a sedative and retired early, supported by her maid. But when Poirot pointed out that the sedative bottle was still full, and her maid had been seen elsewhere at the critical time, her performance of grief faltered. She dabbed at her eyes with the lace handkerchief once more, but this time the fabric trembled in her hands. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how even the smallest details begin to betray the actor. Miss Clara Voss, already shaken from the previous revelations, grew visibly strained when her burned letter was discussed again. She twisted a crisp linen napkin between her gloved fingers, the rough texture contrasting her usual neatness. Her sandalwood cologne seemed sharper in the warm air as she struggled to maintain her efficient secretary role. "Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" The mask slips. Did you catch the tremor in her voice? Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. He arranged the crystal glasses and ashtray symmetrically on the table, creating a small island of order amid the rising chaos. The scent of wood smoke from the heating stove blended with the rich coffee, and the faint bitterness of medicine-like tension that now filled the carriage. Their alibis were tested like fragile scripts under bright lights. Small contradictions multiplied. Langford's claim of being in the smoking compartment at midnight did not match the conductor's quiet observation. Lady Eleanor's sedative story crumbled further when the timing of the train's brief stop was considered. Doors closed softly along the corridor as each suspect retreated briefly to compose themselves, only to be called back for more questions. The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. Rehearsed lines begin to falter when the spotlight grows too harsh. Truth needs no rehearsal, mon ami. It simply exists. The grandfather clock in the lounge car chimed softly, its steady notes cutting through the distant rustle of silk and the crackling of the fire. Outside, the snow continued its relentless fall, turning the windows into frosted curtains that trapped every performer inside this luxurious rolling theatre. You see, but you do not observe the performance. The psychology, it is everything. In this confined first-class stage, the elegant masks are beginning to crack under the weight of truth. Miss Beaumont's hands now shook as she set down her champagne glass with a delicate clink. Langford's pacing grew more erratic, his footsteps sharp on the parquet. Lady Eleanor sat very still, her silk gown suddenly seeming heavier. Miss Voss stared at the floor, her usual efficiency replaced by visible strain. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. The confrontation reached its peak in the dining car during the late afternoon. A warm light from the crystal chandeliers cast long dramatic shadows across the polished mahogany tables. The air was heavy with the mingled scents of strong continental coffee, wood smoke from the heating stoves, and the faint sweetness of hothouse lilies that were beginning to wilt. Outside, the snow had eased slightly, but the train remained firmly trapped, turning the luxurious carriage into an inescapable stage. Poirot called Miss Clara Voss for a final private scene. She entered with her usual crisp linen blouse and soft kid gloves, attempting to maintain her efficient secretary performance. But as Poirot laid out the burned fragments of the letter and the timeline contradictions, her composure cracked wide open. "You loved him, did you not?" Poirot asked gently, tilting his egg-shaped head. "Not as a secretary loves her employer, but with a deeper, more dangerous passion." Miss Voss's hands began to tremble violently. The kid glove slipped from her fingers and fell onto the cold marble tabletop. Suddenly, the mask of cool efficiency fell completely. Real tears, hot and genuine, streamed down her face, smearing her mascara in dark rivulets. Her shoulders shook with raw, unrehearsed sobs. "I loved him," she cried, the words breaking free at last. "He promised me everything. Then he laughed at me. He said I was just a convenience. I threatened to tell his wife. He said he would ruin me." The emotional breakdown was complete. Beneath the performed loyalty and efficiency lay a woman consumed by obsession and rejection. The crucial psychological insight struck like lightning. Her helpfulness had been a mask for guilt, her late-night typing a cover for writing desperate, he passionate letters that Sir Reginald had burned in contempt. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. He applied the director method with quiet precision. The performance was one of perfect professional calm. The tell was the obsessive neatness even in moments of distress. Always arranging papers, always folding gloves, just so. The psychology reminds me of the case of the scorned governess in Surrey, who performed devoted service for years while hiding a burning hatred. She rehearsed her gentle smiles before mirrors, practiced soft answers, yet her hands betrayed her when she reached too steadily for the poison vial. A truly innocent heart trembles. Only guilt can force such unnatural control. The body knows the truth even when the face lies beautifully. The truth, and therefore, is that Miss Voss knew Sir Reginald's secrets intimately. Her obsession drove her to threaten exposure, but she did not wield the knife. Her breakdown reveals pain, not murder. You see it now, Non. The theatre crumbles when real feeling finally breaks through. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch the moment the tears became real? The tension in the dining car rose sharply. Lady Eleanor, waiting outside, pressed a lace handkerchief to her mouth, but this time the fabric grew damp. Victor Langford paced the corridor, his rough tweed jacket brushing the velvet curtains with increasing agitation. His footsteps echoed sharply on the parquet floor. Miss Lydia Beaumont clutched her glass of icy champagne, and the chill of the crystal biting into her fingers as the dry bubbles tasted suddenly bitter on her tongue. Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision, his green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He arranged the crystal glasses symmetrically on the table, restoring a small sense of order amid the emotional storm. "You see, mon ami," he said softly, "when the mask falls completely, the real emotion emerges raw and unguarded. Greed may perform as grief, fear may perform as confidence, but love, twisted into obsession, performs as cool indifference until the pressure becomes unbearable. Then the true face appears." Miss Voss continued to sob quietly, her silk blouse now crumpled, the scent of her sandalwood cologne mixing with the salt of genuine tears. The warm drawing-room felt heavier, and the fire crackling loudly in the sudden silence between sobs. The grandfather clock chimed softly in the distance, its notes cutting through the rustle of silk and the soft closing of compartment doors. As other passengers shifted uneasily. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how guilt manifests physically when the performance can no longer be sustained. The hands tremble, the voice breaks, the eyes can no longer lie. Poirot drew himself up to his full, still small, height. We approach the final act. Have you identified the true performer yet? The one whose mask has not yet fallen completely, but who feels the spotlight burning hotter with every passing minute. Miss Voss was led away gently by the conductor, her breakdown leaving the air charged with raw feeling. Lady Eleanor entered next, her face pale, and the performance of grief now visibly strained. Langford's pacing grew more erratic outside, his breathing audible, even through the closed door. If you are hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Ask yourself that question as the drama tightens. The mask had fallen. The true face had emerged at last. Beneath the carefully constructed role of the efficient secretary lay a heartbroken woman whose obsession had nearly consumed her. But the murderer still wore his mask, though it was beginning to slip dangerously. The dining car fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the soft tinkle of the chandelier and the distant howl of wind against the snowbound windows. The stage lights of truth had grown mercilessly bright. One final mask remained, and it was about to be torn away. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain. Past secrets began to emerge like props dragged into the spotlight from the hidden wings of the theatre. As the afternoon light faded behind the snow-covered windows, Poirot gathered fragments of truth in the warm dining car. The air carried the comforting yet heavy blend of wood smoke from the stoves, rich continental coffee, and the fading sweetness of wilting hothouse lilies. Velvet curtains brushed softly against polished mahogany as passengers moved uneasily. Sir Reginald had been systematically blackmailing Victor Langford for over 2 years. Large sums had vanished from the partnership accounts, disguised as legitimate business expenses. The burned letter fragments confirmed it. Reginald had demanded one final payment, or he would expose Langford's embezzlement to the board and the police. Greed had performed as loyal friendship for too long. Lady Eleanor's mask of dignified grief hid a deeper resentment. She had discovered her husband's affair with Miss Clara Voss months earlier. The late-night dictation sessions were not about business. Reginald had openly mocked his wife's fading beauty and threatened to cut her out of the will if she caused a scandal. Her love for the comfortable life had performed as indifference, but beneath it burned quiet hatred. Hidden connections surfaced one by one. Miss Lydia Beaumont was not merely a wealthy American traveller. She represented a rival American steel consortium that had been negotiating secretly with Sir Reginald to undercut Langford's position. The missing silver cigarette case had been planted in her luggage by Langford in a clumsy attempt to shift suspicion. Her performance of carefree innocence had masked sharp business ambition. The backstage of these relationships revealed a tangled web. Obsession, betrayal, financial desperation, and cold ambition had all shared the same luxurious stage. The elegant first-class carriage, with its crystal chandeliers and soft leather upholstery, had become a pressure cooker where every secret strained against its mask. Reflection. Behind the elegant curtains of first class, motives hide like carefully stored props in a theatre trunk. Humans conceal not only from others, but from themselves. Lady Eleanor wore the veil of the grieving widow because society forbids a wife from admitting relief at her husband's death. Victor Langford performed loyal partnership to mask years of resentment, but always playing second fiddle to a domineering man. Miss Voss cloaked her dangerous obsession behind professional efficiency. Even Miss Beaumont hid ruthless ambition behind youthful charm. Why do we wear these masks? Pride refuses to admit weakness. Greed dresses itself as necessity. Love twists into possession. Fear performs as confidence. In this snowbound theatre, the confined space forced every performance to its breaking point. This situation recalls the case of the merchant on the blue train, who performed the role of the devoted father with heartbreaking tenderness. He rehearsed his worried expressions before every mirror, practiced the gentle tremor in his voice, and arranged his hands in fatherly gestures. Yet when his daughter's jewels vanished, and she was found strangled, his hands remained strangely steady as he reached for the telegram announcing his sudden wealth. A truly devastated father's fingers would have shaken uncontrollably. The body always knows the truth, even when the face lies with perfect artistry. In that glittering case, the merchant had orchestrated the entire tragedy for inheritance money, his paternal love performing as devotion until the final curtain exposed his cold calculation. 138 words. Universally, deception demands constant energy and flawless rehearsal. Truth simply exists, raw, stumbling, and vulnerable. The theatre of crime teaches us that every secret eventually births a motive, and every motive demands its performer. Yet no actor can sustain the performance forever under the unrelenting spotlight of truth. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Before the final act, always peek behind the curtain. Look not at the grand speeches, but at the quiet moments when the actor believes the audience has looked away. In your own life, what curtain do you carefully maintain, and what dangerous truth waits patiently in the shadows behind it. Behind every curtain, a secret. Every secret, a motive. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, his green eyes gleaming with quiet intensity. He arranged the crystal ashtray and a half-empty champagne glass symmetrically on the polished table, restoring small order amid the revelations. The warm drawing-room contrasted sharply with the chill night air that seeped in whenever a door opened briefly to the cold terrace platform. The faint rustle of silk gowns and the soft tread of footsteps on parquet flooring filled the spaces between words. Miss Voss, still red-eyed from her earlier breakdown, sat quietly now, her obsession spent. Lady Eleanor's hands no longer trembled quite so violently as she faced the truth about her husband's betrayals. Victor Langford's pacing had grown slower, heavier, his rough tweed jacket seeming to weigh more with every step. Miss Beaumont's bright American smile had faded into something sharper and more calculating. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch how each small revelation changes the way they hold themselves? The grandfather clock in the lounge car chimed softly, its notes blending with the distant crackling of the fire and the occasional tinkle of the crystal chandelier. Strong coffee was served once more, its bitter warmth steadying frayed nerves. The scent of sandalwood cologne and expensive perfume lingered heavily in the warm air. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. We have now seen behind the curtain, mes amis. The elegant stage of first class hides the same ugly motives found in every theatre of crime. Greed performing as grief, hate performing as loyalty, ambition performing as innocence. But the psychology reveals all. The body cannot lie when the mask is finally torn away. The tension in the confined carriage had become almost palpable. Someone among these refined passengers still clung desperately to their final mask. But the spotlight of truth was growing mercilessly bright, and the final act was approaching fast. Behind every curtain, a secret, every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The cast was assembled in the dining car as the winter light faded behind the snow-covered windows. Her crystal chandeliers cast a dramatic golden glow over the polished mahogany tables and heavy velvet curtains. The warm air carried the rich scents of strong continental coffee, wood smoke from the stoves, and the faint sweetness of wilting hothouse lilies. Every suspect sat in their assigned place like actors on a final stage call. Outside, the cold night air pressed against the glass, sealing the luxurious carriage into its private theatre of truth. Poirot stood at the head of the table, drawing himself up to his full, still small, height. He adjusted his moustache with precision, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. He arranged a crystal glass and ashtray symmetrically before beginning, his small hands moving with deliberate order. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, his voice calm and commanding, you have each performed for Poirot. Some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we? He turned first to Lady Eleanor Harrington. Lady Eleanor, you played the grieving widow with such elegance. The delicate dabs of the handkerchief, the appropriately shaking shoulders. But the grief, it was costume, not feeling. The handkerchief remained dry, the mascara did not run. You knew of your husband's death before the conductor knocked, because you already suspected what had happened. Your performance was convincing, but not perfect. Lady Eleanor's face paled. Her silk gown rustled as she shifted, but she said nothing. Poirot continued smoothly. Mr. Victor Langford, You performed the loyal friend and shocked business partner with energy. You paced, you protested, you spoke of brotherhood. But loyalty does not lie about alibis. You claimed to be in the smoking compartment at midnight, yet the conductor saw you near Sir Reginald's door. Loyalty also does not hide financial motives, the blackmail, the embezzlement. Reginald threatened to expose you. Greed performed as concern, but the mask was slipping. Langford's hands clenched on the table, his rough tweed jacket suddenly seeming too tight. His breathing grew audible in the warm room. "Miss Clara Voss," Poirot said gently, "your role was the devoted, efficient secretary. You performed calm competence beautifully, until the mask fell completely in this very car. Your obsession with Sir Reginald was real. The burned letters, the late-night typing, the rejected love. But you did not kill him. Your breakdown revealed pain, not murder, as the psychology showed us that." Miss Voss lowered her eyes, fresh tears glistening, her linen blouse now crumpled. Poirot turned to the young American. "Miss Lydia Beaumont, you played the innocent bystander and carefree heiress with wide eyes and fluttering lashes. Yet innocent bystanders do not have stolen items planted in their luggage. You represented rival interests seeking to ruin Sir Reginald's deals. Your performance of youthful nonchalance masked sharp ambition, but you did not wield the knife." Miss Beaumont's smile faded. She clutched her champagne glass, the crystal cold against her fingers, the dry taste suddenly bitter. "And so we come to our leading performer." Poirot's voice grew sharper, his small hands making an expressive gesture. "Mr. Victor Langford, you gave the most convincing performance of all. The shock, the outrage, the helpful cooperation. Magnifique! You paced the corridors, you muttered about rivals, you offered assistance at every turn. But you made one fatal error. One small moment when the mask slipped completely." Langford froze. Poirot leaned forward slightly. "When the body was discovered and everyone gathered in horror, you reached for your cigarette case with perfectly steady hands. A man truly shocked does not have steady hands. The body knows the truth even when the face performs outrage. I am reminded of the deceptive cases where grief or shock was rehearsed so carefully, yet the hands betrayed the actor. You, Mr. Langford, slit Sir Reginald's throat in a moment of rage and desperation when he demanded one final blackmail payment. You staged the robbery by taking the silver cigarette case and slightly opening the window, as you locked the door from inside and slipped out through the communicating door to your own compartment, which adjoined his. A neat, surgical performance, but the psychology betrayed you." Langford's face drained of colour. His rehearsed lines failed him at last. You can't prove." Poirot's green eyes gleamed. "The little grey cells have already proven it. The steady hand, the false alibi, the planted evidence, the financial motive. The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth, she takes her bow." A heavy silence fell over the dining car. Only the soft tinkle of the crystal chandelier and the distant crackling of the fire broke the stillness. Langford's shoulders slumped. The confident mask shattered completely, revealing the desperate, cornered man beneath. Lady Eleanor released a long, shaky breath, her silk gown rustling as she sat back. Miss Voss wiped her eyes, the obsession finally spent. Miss Beaumont set down her champagne glass with a delicate clink, her ambition now exposed but no longer hidden. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. The final act has concluded. Only truth has survived the curtain call. The murderer sat exposed in the merciless spotlight. No more performances, no more masks. The elegant first-class theatre had delivered its final revelation. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The dining car fell into a profound silence after Poirot's revelation. The crystal chandeliers continued to cast their soft golden light over the polished mahogany tables. But the warm glow now felt colder, more clinical, and the air still carried the mingled scents of strong continental coffee. Fading wood smoke from the stoves, and the sweet decay of wilting hothouse lilies. Outside, the snow had finally stopped falling, leaving the windows frosted like heavy stage curtains drawn across the night. Victor Langford sat motionless in his chair, his rough tweed jacket suddenly appearing shabby and ill-fitting. The confident mask he had worn so carefully had shattered completely. His face was pale. His hands, once so steady, now trembled visibly as he stared at the table. The steady hands that had betrayed him in the moment of discovery were now the clearest proof of his guilt. Lady Eleanor Harrington released a long, trembling breath. Her silk gown rustled softly as she leaned back, the lace handkerchief finally damp with genuine emotion, and the performance of dignified grief had ended. In its place appeared quiet, exhausted relief. For the first time since the murder, her eyes showed real feeling, relief at freedom from a domineering husband who had mocked and controlled her for years. She no longer needed to dab at dry eyes. Miss Clara Voss sat with her head slightly bowed. Her crisp linen blouse was wrinkled, her soft kid gloves discarded on the table. The raw sobs from her earlier breakdown had left her eyes red and swollen, but her face now carried a strange peace. The dangerous obsession that had consumed her had burned itself out. The mask of cool efficiency had been stripped away, revealing a woman who had loved unwisely and paid dearly for it. She would carry the scars, but no longer the burden of hiding. Miss Lydia Beaumont set her champagne glass down with a delicate clink. The icy chill of the crystal had long since warmed in her hands. Her silk evening gown, once fluttering with youthful energy, now seemed subdued. The performance of the innocent American heiress had crumbled. Her sharp business ambition lay exposed, yet she showed no real fear, only the calm acceptance of a player whose role had been revealed. She would face questions from the authorities, but her hands were clean of blood. The conductor Pierre stood quietly near the door, his footsteps no longer needed on the parquet flooring. He watched the scene with the discreet respect of a stagehand who had seen many performances end. The faint scent of his simple cologne, mixed with the richer perfumes still lingering in the warm air, Poirot remained standing at the head of the table. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve with fastidious care, and adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction, but there was no triumph in his expression, only the calm of a director who had guided the drama to its necessary conclusion. "Justice, she begins her work now," he said softly. "The train will reach the next station by morning. The authorities have been informed by wireless. Mr. Langford will be taken into custody. The rest of you will give your statements. The masks are gone. What remains is the truth, stripped and honest." Langford lifted his head slowly. His voice, when it came, was hoarse and broken, no longer smooth and rehearsed. I didn't plan it. He pushed me too far. The blackmail, the threats, I only wanted him to stop." Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. Many murderers begin with that same line, mon ami. The performance of desperation is common, but the knife was real. The wound was precise. The steady hands that night were not those of a man pushed beyond control. They were the hands of a man who had calculated his moment. Lady Eleanor spoke for the first time since the revelation, her voice quiet but steady. He made my life a prison of silk and expectations. I will not pretend sorrow I do not feel. Her words carried the weight of years of performed indifference. The transformation was complete. She was no longer the elegant widow playing her assigned role. She was simply a woman finally free. Miss Voss wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, the gesture unpolished and real. I thought I could make him love me. I was foolish, but I never wished him dead. Her obsession had performed as loyalty for so long. Now only honest regret remained. Miss Beaumont gave a small, wry smile. I came for business, not blood. I suppose the spotlight caught me too. Her youthful mask had been replaced by the sharper, more honest face of ambition. The grandfather clock in the lounge car chimed softly in the distance, its notes clear and final, like the last notes of a closing overture. The fire crackled warmly, providing comfort against the chill night air that still pressed against the windows. The scent of fresh coffee was brought in once more, its rich aroma offering a small measure of normalcy to the stripped stage. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The curtain call has come, and there is no applause for this performance, only justice. The theatre of crime always ends this way. The actors leave the stage changed, some lighter, some heavier, but none leave wearing the same masks they wore when the drama began. Langford was gently escorted to a separate compartment under the watchful eyes of the conductor and the local constable who had remained aboard. The others sat in silence, each processing the removal of their masks. The elegant first-class carriage, once a glittering stage of luxury and deception, now felt quieter, almost peaceful in its honesty. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the faces look different now that the performances have ended? The eyes are clearer, the hands are still. The voices no longer need to rehearse every word, and the tension that had filled the carriage for hours slowly began to ease, replaced by the quiet aftermath of truth revealed. The snow outside lay thick and white, a blank page after the final scene. Chapter 9. After the show. The Orient Express finally began to move again, as the first pale light of dawn touched the snow-covered Alps. The heavy white curtain that had trapped the train for so long slowly lifted. The luxurious carriages glided forward with a gentle sway, the polished mahogany panels catching the early light. The air inside the dining car still carried the faint traces of wood smoke, strong continental coffee, and the sweet, fading scent of hothouse lilies now drooping in their silver vases. The crystal chandeliers had been dimmed, their tinkling softened by the steady rhythm of the rails, and the transformations were clear as the cast stepped out of their roles. Lady Eleanor Harrington sat near the window, her silk gown no longer a costume of grief, but simple travelling attire. The elegant widow's mask had been discarded completely. In its place was a woman breathing freely for the first time in years. Her eyes, once carefully dry, now held a quiet peace. She watched the passing landscape with soft wonder, as if seeing the world anew without the weight of performance. "I will sell the London house," she said quietly to Poirot. "Too many memories dressed in lies. I want sunlight and honesty." Victor Langford had been removed at the last station under police escort. His confident businessman role had collapsed entirely. The man who left was broken, his rough tweed jacket hanging loosely on shoulders that no longer carried the burden of rehearsed charm. Greed, which had performed so long as loyalty, had finally cost him everything. Justice had begun its slow, inevitable work. Miss Clara Voss sat with her hands folded in her lap, the crisp linen blouse replaced by a simpler travelling dress. Her dangerous obsession had burned away in the fire of truth. The efficient secretary mask was gone. What remained was a woman marked by regret but no longer hiding. She spoke softly to Poirot, her voice free of its former careful precision. "I thought love could be forced into a role. I was wrong. Perhaps now I can find a life that needs no script." Her eyes, still slightly swollen, held a new clarity. Miss Lydia Beaumont had shed the fluttering lashes and carefree smile of the innocent heiress. Her silk evening gown had been changed for practical travelling clothes. The sharp ambition that had hidden behind youthful charm now stood open and acknowledged. She sipped the last of her hot coffee, its rich bitterness matching her honest mood. "I came for business and got caught in someone else's drama," she said with a wry smile. "Next time I'll keep my ambitions on paper, not in other people's compartments." Her future would involve boardrooms rather than murder inquiries, but she would carry the lesson of the spotlight. Poirot moved among them like a director watching the final bows. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, then arranged a small vase of remaining lilies symmetrically on the table. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he observed the changes. The warm drawing-room felt lighter now, the chill night air replaced by the fresh promise of morning. The parquet flooring no longer echoed with tense footsteps, but with the gentle rhythm of the moving train. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how each actor has been transformed once the masks were removed. The widow walks lighter, the secretary breathes easier, the heiress stands taller in honesty. Even the guilty one, though he faces chains, no longer carries the exhausting weight of performance." The setting itself had changed. The elegant rolling stage of first class, once heavy with deception and tension, now felt peaceful. Velvet curtains swayed softly with the train's motion instead of hiding secrets. The crystal glasses no longer held nervous champagne, but simple water. The grandfather clock chimed a new hour, its sound clear and unburdened. Outside the windows, as the snow sparkled under rising sunlight, turning the alpine landscape into a blank canvas for new beginnings. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? Now, at last, it is truth. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. The theatre empties slowly after the final curtain. Some leave richer in freedom, others poorer in consequence, but all leave changed. The psychology teaches us that truth, once revealed, reshapes every player. Greed loses its costume. Obsession finds its limit. Ambition learns humility. Even love, when twisted, finds a chance to heal when the mask is gone. Lady Eleanor smiled faintly as she accepted a fresh cup of hot coffee, its warmth comforting her hands. Miss Voss straightened her shoulders, no longer needing to twist napkins or arrange papers obsessively. Miss Beaumont looked out at the passing mountains with clear, unfluttering eyes. The confined theatre of the Orient Express had delivered its final lesson. The conductor Pierre moved quietly through the carriage, his footsteps soft and respectful on the parquet. He offered fresh linen napkins and adjusted the velvet curtains to let in more light. The scent of furniture wax mingled with the clean smell of snow drifting in through a briefly opened window. The train's steady motion brought a soothing rhythm, like the closing notes of a long, complex symphony. The futures stretched ahead, indicated in small, hopeful signs. Lady Eleanor spoke of a quiet cottage in the English countryside, free from society's demanding roles. Miss Voss considered returning to a simpler secretarial post, where efficiency would be valued without hidden passion. Miss Beaumont planned to face her business dealings with greater honesty, her ambition tempered by the memory of the spotlight. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. His egg-shaped head tilted slightly as he observed them all. The stage lights dim, the audience disperses, but the lessons of the theatre linger long after the curtain falls. The elegant first-class carriage, once a glittering stage of masks and performances, now carried only honest travellers toward their destinations. The drama had ended. Justice had taken its bow. The actors had removed their costumes and stepped into whatever came next. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat comfortably in his favourite armchair in his London apartment several weeks later. The room was warm and orderly, filled with the soothing aroma of tisane, steaming in a delicate porcelain cup. Soft firelight flickered across polished mahogany furniture, and velvet curtains drawn against the evening chill. A single hothouse lily in a crystal vase added a faint sweet scent to the air, while the grandfather clock ticked steadily in the corner, like the final fading notes of a long performance. Outside, a light rain tapped gently on the windows, contrasting the peaceful warmth inside. News of the players' fates had reached him gradually. Victor Langford had been formally charged and awaited trial. His once smooth performance of loyalty had ended in a cold prison cell. Lady Eleanor had sold the grand London house and retired to a small cottage in the Cotswolds, where she walked freely without the weight of rehearsed grief. And Miss Clara Voss had taken a modest secretarial position in Paris, her obsession spent, and her efficiency now genuine rather than masked. Miss Lydia Beaumont had returned to America, her sharp ambition tempered by the memory of the Orient Express spotlight. She wrote occasionally of conducting business with greater honesty. Poirot sipped his tisane, its gentle herbal taste calming his thoughts. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and arranged a small stack of letters symmetrically on the side table. His green eyes gleamed with quiet reflection as he reviewed the entire drama. Why do people perform, rather than simply reveal the truth? Because society writes the scripts for us long before we step onto the stage. We are told to wear the mask of the devoted wife, the loyal partner, the innocent traveller, the efficient secretary. Greed dresses itself in the costume of concern. Hate performs as friendship. Love, when rejected, hides behind cool professionalism. Fear puts on the face of confidence. Pride refuses to admit weakness. In the luxurious first-class theatre of the Orient Express, these performances were intensified by the confined space and the glittering Art Deco elegance that demanded perfection. Every actor feared the audience's judgment until the spotlight of truth grew too bright to bear. The masks society demands are heavy. Lady Eleanor wore the veil of dignified widowhood because admitting relief at her husband's death would have invited scandal and isolation. Victor Langford rehearsed loyalty for years while resentment festered beneath. Miss Voss cloaked dangerous obsession behind crisp linen and precise schedules. Even Miss Beaumont hid ruthless business ambition behind fluttering lashes and champagne smiles. These roles are not chosen freely. They are assigned by expectation, by class, by wealth, by gender. Yet no mask fits perfectly forever. The body rebels, the hands tremble when they should stay steady. The eyes remain dry when tears are demanded. The voice flows too smoothly when truth would stumble. Guilt always betrays the actor in the end. It manifests in small physical tells that no amount of rehearsal can erase. The steady hand reaching for a cigarette in a moment of supposed shock, the unnecessary precision of movement when chaos should reign, the avoided glance when directness is expected. The little grey cells understand this psychology deeply. The performance requires constant energy, while truth simply exists. But when the pressure mounts, the actor forgets the lines. The mask slips. The true face emerges, raw and unguarded. This case reminded Poirot strongly of the Ackroyd affair years earlier. In that quiet country house, a man had performed shock and grief so convincingly that even Poirot was momentarily deceived. He rehearsed his expressions before mirrors, practiced the widening of eyes and the dropping of the jaw, arranged his voice to break at precisely the right moment. Yet when the body was discovered, his hands reached for his cigarette case with unnatural steadiness. A truly shocked man's fingers tremble. Only the guilty can force such control. The body knows the truth even when the face lies with perfect artistry. In both cases, the psychology beneath the performance revealed the fatal flaw. The murderer believed their rehearsal flawless, but the little grey cells saw the contradiction between the acted emotion and the physical reality. 168 words. The psychology of revelation is perhaps the most beautiful part of any drama. When the mask finally falls, real feeling rushes in. Relief for Lady Eleanor, regret for Miss Voss, acceptance for Miss Beaumont. Even the guilty experience a strange release when the exhausting performance ends. Truth triumphs over performance because lies demand perfection no human can sustain indefinitely. The theatre of crime always ends the same way. The curtain falls, the actors leave changed, and the audience, careful observers like you, carry away the lesson. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. In your own life, and observe the performances around you. Ask yourself why this person needs to play the role of the perfect friend, the grieving relative, the confident leader. Watch the hands when they speak of sorrow. Notice the eyes when they claim innocence. The careful observer will see the tiny hesitations, the unnecessary smoothness, the moments when the actor thinks no one is watching. Because every actor eventually forgets their lines. Every mask eventually cracks under the spotlight of truth. Poirot set down his tisane and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. Order and method, combined with the understanding of human psychology, will always pierce the most elegant performance. People wear masks because they fear the naked face of truth. Yet truth, once revealed, brings a strange freedom. Even to the guilty, who no longer need to carry the heavy costume of deception. He leaned back in his armchair, the fire's warmth comforting against the chill night air outside. The rain continued its soft tapping on the windows, like distant applause fading away. The apartment felt peaceful, a quiet backstage after the final curtain. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always.